Mouse PI for Hire just released, and after finishing it, I'm left feeling a little underwhelmed. It is a good game, but it didn't hit me as hard as I had hoped it would. It has some amazing things in it, don't get me wrong, but it lacks in certain aspects of the gameplay and has some big missed opportunities. I thought I was getting aged smoked Gouda, but I was served low moisture mozzarella. After years of anticipation, Polish indie game developer Fumi Games and Australian game publisher PlaySide have released Mouse PI for Hire, a film noir-style first-person boomer shooter with 1930s rubber hose animation where you play as Jack Pepper, a mouse PI out to crack a big missing persons case while taking out buildings full of bad guys to a banging big band jazz soundtrack. That concept piqued a lot of interest, and to some degree they absolutely delivered. The animation looks incredible, the level designs are well put together with a slight Metroidvania type influence, and the music? Forget about it. It's friggin' fantastic. Written by Polish composer Patrick Selena, this soundtrack is the bee's knees. There's even a swell song you can hear on the game's jukebox called Good Mouse by electro swing band Caravan Palace that will have you cutting a rug. But once I got past all that glitz and glamour, it felt a little basic. When the game starts, you are immediately swept away by the animation, the music, and the vibe it all puts out. You're running through rooms and corridors, taking out enemies quick and clean. The movement is fast and fluid. The weapon animation is fantastic. Even the ammo in the corner is animated. After the opening level, a gorgeous cutscene starts with Troy Baker as Jack Pepper, narrating an inner monologue as Jack drives through the beautiful city of Mouseburg, classic noir style with a cheesy cartoon twist. Jack's reporter friend Wanda gives him the missing persons case that kicks off the main story, and now you're a sleuth, picking locks with your tail, finding secret areas with different collectibles and cash, and kicking out windows, all while looking for clues to help solve the case. You head to Jack's office, pin the clues to his giant board, which sets up the next level, but before you leave, you can stop in a local bar, talk to NPCs, play a baseball card game with the cards you've collected, or go to the shop across the street and use the cash you've gathered to buy ammo or the collectibles you missed in previous levels. You even get to drive around Mouseburg to your next destination while doing donuts in the streets. The game starts strong. That's the glitz and glamour. But once you've got a few levels and bosses under the belt, it begins to lose the magic. The story progresses, and you are introduced to new enemy types, weapons, and bosses that at first feel fine and dandy. But the further along you get, the more you see the holes in the cheese. The enemies that flood the different rooms and corridors all start to look the same. There are different types of enemies, ones with melee weapons, shotguns, rifles, little flying dudes, and brutes. But between the different factions you go up against, like mobsters, corrupt cops, cultists, etc., the enemies are all the exact same, just with a different wardrobe. There's not a lot of variety. In a zany 30s cartoon style, the possibilities should be endless, but they feel and act like basic FPS enemies, which brings me to the weapons. There is a decent variety of weapons you get throughout the game, but it's not anything we haven't seen before. Again, in a zany 30s cartoon style, the possibilities should be endless, but we're left with mostly FPS basics and a few interesting weapons that you don't obtain until later in the game and don't really have much use for beyond trying to save your ass when you run out of ammo for your go-tos. For me, those go-tos were the Jimmy gun, an automatic rifle, the boomstick, which is a shotgun, and the devarnisher, which lobs white chemical blobs that melt enemies. And even between those three, 90% of the time, I was using the Jimmy gun. The game doesn't give many reasons to change up your weapons. There are some situations that do, mainly with a few bosses, but not many. I will say though that the animation of the weapons and ammo, the reload animations, and the alternate fire options you get once weapons have been upgraded are all great. But as a whole, the weapons just fall short, which brings me to the bosses. Mouse PI for Hire offers up a good number of bosses that look amazing on the surface. Their animation and attacks look great. Some of them take a little more thought and nuance to defeat instead of just ammo dumping them to death. And there is a decent diversity in boss types and style, but that's where it ends. The majority of bosses only have one stage. They don't really change up in their attacks or difficulty. They're much of the same from start to finish. Once you figure out the patterns, which doesn't take long, they're pretty easy to take down. Even the final boss fight. I won't show footage because of spoilers, but it wasn't that difficult. It is one of the few bosses that has multiple stages, but only the first stage is hard. I beat it first try, barely made it through the first stage, but after that, if you figure out the cheese, it becomes the easiest boss fight in the game. Another thing I want to mention is that the majority of the bosses have no real impact on the story. Some do, but most are just thrown in. I know that can be a thing in this genre and others, but with the whole theme of it being a crime story, these bosses could have been more than just a random boss, and could have been integrated into the story in a way that made the fights more impactful to the narrative. Especially with one very specific boss that I won't spoil, but I was ultimately disappointed with how the character was treated in the story, and he's not the only character I feel that way about. He and other characters and bosses were big missed opportunities with how they were utilized, which brings me to what I personally feel is the biggest missed opportunity, the detective aspect of the game. Mouse at its core is a first-person shooter, and I understand that. But you play as a detective in a film noir-inspired video game, so one would expect a level of, well, detective work. This game presents itself in that way, and it's a facade. Even the clue board felt like it was going to be more than just a plot device to move from one level to the next, but it's all linear and you have nothing to do with advancing the story as far as the detective work goes. I personally feel that including more detective elements when searching for clues, then connecting and solving those clues with puzzles, brain teasers, and riddles would have made it feel much more interactive, like you're actually solving the mystery rather than just running around blasting away. Again, I know it's a shooter, and running around blasting away is the bread and butter, but adding more detective elements to this game would have been a nice slice of cheddar on top. Before I close, there is one last thing I want to touch on: the story and dialogue. Those are at the bottom of my gripe list because they weren't that bad, but I should bring them up. The story could have been better. It wasn't horrible or anything, but it wasn't great either. It went all over the place in some areas, but it is a cartoon game, so that is kind of expected. I just wish it was a bit more refined. And with the dialogue, again, it's not that it's bad. The voice acting is on point, but the jokes just didn't really click with me. There were moments and some hilarious movie references that had me rolling, especially a Star Wars one, but most of it was kind of cheesy, tongue-in-cheek humor. I guess that's kind of the point though. It is a 30s cartoon style, so the cheesy one-liners are also to be expected. It just may not be everyone's cold cup of fondue, especially IGN apparently. All in all, Mouse PI for Hire is a good but basic FPS wrapped in exquisite packaging, like a golden wrapped Hershey bar. Its package is nice, but once opened it's the same old chocolate. There are definitely flaws in it that hold it back from being something great, but who knows? This could be a stepping stone to a phenomenal sequel in the future, similar to how the original Assassin's Creed was repetitive and basic, but provided the cornerstone to Assassin's Creed 2, which was a million times better in every aspect of the game. If you were interested in this right off the bat, I say check it out. It is fun and enjoyable despite its flaws. But if you've been on the fence even before the release, maybe hold off until it's on sale or something. It might not be for you. If you're interested in checking out another black and white Polish indie mouse game, check out my review of Bad Cheese. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and all that YouTube stuff. I thank you all for watching today. Take care, everybody.
He had my eyes, and I wasn't leaving without him.